There we go.
Melissa, welcome.
I have a face now.
Thank
Aw-
you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is great. I'm excited. You made my day. I'm gonna have receipt management and keeper.
I'm glad. I think you're going to make a whole lot more people's days as well. So I
Uh,
think,
that.
I think probably like if you can even right size your pricing with one client, the leverage you have is so huge it like pays for your entire keeper subscription for the year.
You can't, yes, and that's very true. And I even have some numbers to kind of back that up because I'm actually in the middle. I started early this year, so that way I could implement some of the changes that I'm making to my own mini course. And so I'm in the middle of like all of the price increase and analysis and sending out my letters and the updates and all of that. And I'm really excited to say it's I'm getting really great responses from clients already, which I think the big thing is just you need to do it. But I think we're doing it really well. So that's always a better way to do it, right?
Awesome. Well, before I let you take things away, let me introduce you to the room here. So, for those of you who have not met Melissa, seen Melissa speak at PKX, or just otherwise heard her general reputation, Melissa runs bookkeeping for painters. It is an amazing, amazing bookkeeping practice that I think really embodies the a lot of what I think the future of bookkeeping looks like. So you've got value-based pricing, you've got niched accounting, um, and you've got advisory style services, so moving beyond just sort of pure core bookkeeping. So I really think like the bookkeeping for painters of the world are really the future. And in order, one of the great things about niching is it lets you charge more because you actually know more about your clients. You can deliver more about your clients. Melissa also recently launched a course, and she had publicized some materials that things like a price increase letter. So I'll let Melissa take it away and talk a little bit more about how she thinks about pricing, how she thinks about price increases, and where you can go to learn more.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben, for giving me all the compliments. Get a little, red in the face with that. But yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'll tell you a little bit about bookkeeping for painters. You can, look us up, bookkeepingforpainters.com. That way, if you want to, check to see that we're legit, we are. Ben can see that because we are keeper users and we have been for quite some time. So right now, I want to say we have probably 150 clients or so, maybe a little bit more that are up, using Keeper. We do have some tax only clients. So we have been serving painting businesses since 2016. I have a team of approximately 20, combination between employees and then subcontractors. Um, our subcontractors are a mix of US-based subcontractors and outsourced subcontractors that we have hired directly on our, without using a firm. I'm saying all of this because you guys might have some questions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. But this kind of sets up for, the conversation that we have around pricing is how we're structured, right? We have quite a big team and quite a lot of clients. Since 2016, we've been serving painting businesses. We did kind of take a detour, I would say, in about 2019 and started serving some adjacent trades. And then we did, an about face like really quickly and decided that we were going to solely focus on painting businesses. If you ever meet me in person, you can go ahead and ask me if I'll ever work with landscapers again, and we'll have a really good conversation about that. The answer is no. Um, when it comes to how we organize our business, we actually have four divisions. So we have bookkeeping, which was the core where we started everything. Advisory, so we do provide advisory services to our clients. We have a tax department. We are not a CPA firm at this time, but that is coming soon. Just I always say that because you don't have to be a CPA to, have tax services. So we do have a team of enrolled agents, and then we do have an automation division. So we do provide back-end automation services to our clients to help them automate their sales process. So automating the sales process for painting businesses as well as the onboarding of subcontractors. And so in the process of setting up a lot of the sales systems for painting businesses, It's something that I've always done the sales for our company, and I have been in sales for over 15 years. I really got inspired while helping set that up to start doing the same thing for bookkeepers as well. So it kind of all comes full circle, right? So we have approximately a $2 million bookkeeping business with the advisory, the automation, and the tax services, serving approximately 165 clients. And one of the things that we put in our contract, which is the first thing that I include in my mini course, is a clause about price increases, because I found since 2016, since implementing different departments as we go, finding out that maybe I underpriced to begin with, maybe the scope changed, inflation, we went through the period of COVID, right? Lots of things have changed that we needed to prepare our clients ahead of time for price increases that will come in the future. And one of the biggest mistakes I made through this process was not preparing people ahead of time. And so I got a lot of the backlash when I first started to implement price increases, because they came out of left field, right? Nobody knew that they were coming. I didn't have a good process. I didn't have a good system. There was lots of changes and a lot of really rapid growth, right? So as these changes are happening, and so that was a big reason that I decided to put this together for other bookkeepers, because I know I struggled through it. If I could help you guys do the same thing without that struggle, that would really help. And the first step of that is setting the expectations and preparing for price increases from the get-go. Don't wait until you're at $2 million and annual revenue to start thinking about how you're going to increase your prices. Set it up from the beginning, so that way, as you guys grow, things are going to be easier for you. I guess I can keep going, but I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I don't know if
Yeah, no, I'm curious, when you get to the point where you have to like have the awkward conversation about increasing someone's prices the first time. So I think like second time, they're used to it, whatever, back to life. And I like the value they get from your services so exceed the whatever percent increase, that it almost always makes sense. But like the first time, can you tell us a story about like how that goes, what objections you had to handle? Like, when do you know if you're going to be able to make this work, or if you and the client need to part ways, to sort of reset those expectations in the first place?
That's a great question. So I can think of like several years ago, but then I can also tell you recently that I messed up. So I always like to tell people how I mess up, so that that I don't fully have my shit together enough. That I'm not in the trenches with you guys. Trust me, I still I'm still learning every day. And so I'll use this example, is that I recently implemented a price increase and I did not follow my own process. I just stop right there and be like, Melissa, what are you doing? So I am probably the biggest problem in my own business, which a lot of you might relate to that as well, where I have much smarter people that remind me to do the things that I teach other people to do, because I will just, be doing my thing. Yes, man, the same, right? We're, do as I say, not as I do, right? No, so I did not follow this process. And the reason being is that diving into my price increase season, I pull, we have production hours for all of our clients, right? So we're tracking using Keyword time tracking. And so tracking, how many hours are spent on bookkeeping, how many hours are spent at advisory, how many hours are spent on quality control. Very, very detailed, because we have different people doing those things. So in our system, most of our clients are bookkeeping and advisory clients. They're going to have a bookkeeping specialist that's doing the bookkeeping work, a quality control bookkeeper that's going to QC that bookkeeper, and then an advisor, an account manager that does the client facing work. So there's 3 people involved in a client. I need to know all their hours. I need to, be able to have an idea of what their estimated production rate is, so that way I can get a gross profit by client. So I do job profitability reporting on every single client with those hours, with our software costs, to get an idea of what the gross profit is. And so as I had pulled all of these numbers back in July. I started mid-year because I do a mid-year price increase, and an annual price increase as part of my process. So I'm following the process, right? So I pull the numbers in July, and I have my biggest client, and they're pretty low. I've got like a 15% gross profit. I pull it up and they went from like 8 or 9 million to 13.9 million out of nowhere. It just hits you, right? Like that happens if you're not doing the bookkeeping on the account, right? And somebody doesn't say, hey, just want to let you know that they did an extra $5 million this quarter. That conversation didn't happen. So I panic. I'm like, okay. But as life happens, I'm like, okay, they're going to need a price increase, put them at the top of my list. I got to talk to their advisor and see like what's going on. What do we expect in the future? Is this going to keep happening? Get around to it. Well, a month goes around and I haven't done that yet. It falls to the bottom of my pile. So it's August and I'm like, okay, let me rerun these numbers, just make sure my numbers are still right before I reach out to the client. Pull the numbers, and this client is at $20 million. Okay, so it's been like 5 minutes. Like, how did you go from 13 million to $20 million? Like, that's legitimately insane for like any business, right? Like, that's not just me. That's crazy.
Maybe we should be having this client on for our next catch up with Keeper 11.
I'm like, okay, so this client's like legit, right? Is something wrong? So now I'm pulling in. I'm like, is this right? Like, yeah, it's right. And so we're at the end of August, beginning of September, and I'm like, I can't wait to implement a price increase on this client because he just went from we've priced this client at when they were doing 9-10 million, they are now at 20 million. And so I'm like, we've got to change this now. So I get everything together. And then I kind of follow the rest of my process in a sense where I get the letter together and I get the pricing and I do this and I send it and I let them know we're going to have to do a price increase within the next 2 weeks because of XYZ. This happened, blah, blah, blah. Needless to say, they're not thrilled about it because they didn't get any notice. And it didn't matter that I was panicked because I messed up. I didn't do the right thing and give them notice. And I realized that. Almost immediately. And so I got into a meeting with them, which is probably what I should have done anyway, because this is a huge client. And I had to kind of talk them down and be like, I do care about you, but to be honest, and this is the best thing, right? Honesty is the best policy. I freaked out. How the hell did you guys go from 9 million to $20 million? And then we started having another conversation and they were like, oh, okay. And like, they understood. They're like, yeah, if that happened to us, we probably would panic too. And then I was just real with them. I was like, look, like, I have a negative gross profit on your account within the last month. Like this happened out of nowhere. What are your plans? We started talking. Anyway, so I increased that client. They were paying us about $89.95. They're paying us about $15,000 a month now. This is the first time I've ever done this. I have implemented a monthly price increase plan with this client where I personally, as the CEO of the company, will run their reports every single month and find out what their reporting is, what their production rate is, and implement a new price every month, depending on where they are in their growth. Because I've never had a company that had plans to get to $100 million within a calendar year, but they do. So this is, speaking of a whale, this will make you rethink some of your processes. But follow your processes and then you don't have to run into these problems. It does have a good end of the story, but it could have gone really wrong. I could have and potentially was for a little while going to lose one of my biggest clients because I did not follow my own process. So long story.
Wow. That's
I'm a
amazing.
rambler.
So you mentioned, so now you've got this client on a monthly increase. You mentioned you do mid-year and annual price increases. So for a typical client, do you do annual price increases, like twice a year price increases? Is
Great
that?
question.
Yeah. Yes. Tell me more about how you think about the timing of things.
Yeah, so I break out price increases by your typical scope of work. Your client wants more, right? And then your general price increases. And so your scope of work, it needs to be done as it happens, right? I want job costing, pay me more money. I just added 4 different bank. I'm going to do profit first now, and I have 15 accounts, none of which you can set up an automated transfer. Like, I'm going to charge you more money now. So that's as it comes up. What you want to do is for that, just ensure that you're having those conversations every time. Because if you let it slide, You let it slide. You let it slide. That's when you get to the end of the year and you realize, oh my God, I spend 200% more time than I budgeted for this client because all those little things added up. So the first thing is just accepting that when scope comes your way, that you do need to hand back a price increase with that. And that's the biggest thing, because I see, so the scope creep for a reason is that they keep adding those little things. Those little things need to equate to more money as they're happening. Now, if that doesn't happen, I understand it doesn't, you want to check twice a year. So I price based on annual revenue, but also paired with gross profit by client. I've got a really good system where revenue does work for us 98% of the time. But I do also run gross profit by client, because you have those people that want additional, but you also have the easy clients, right? And I don't want to penalize my easy clients with pricing that might be crazy for them. Like, as an example, I have a client that does $1.8 million in annual revenue, and he is priced at a $500,000 a month client. And we still make so much money on this man because he's just such a great, easy client. And so I'm not going to charge him. I could, but I'm, that somewhat, ethical when it comes to pricing, despite the fact that I sell on how to increase prices. The reason I do this is so that it's fair for the client and it's fair for us. So I don't want you to think this price increase or anything else I do sales related is like, we're going to get one over on the client and we're just going to make a bunch of money. It's like, no, like, I understand that the hesitation to increase your price because you feel like you're going to lose your client. You don't know if it's fair to them. You don't know if it's fair to you. And I try to make that as transparent as possible. So when it comes to, I lost my train of thought. I got to circle back.
We're talking about price increase scheduling.
Price increase scheduling. So yeah, so the reason why I do it twice a year, I do it based on the annual revenue paired with gross profit. You could still do this if you price differently, because what it's going to do is just get you on the habit to check in with your pricing twice a year. So I run my numbers from January to June. So each July, I'm looking at what their revenue is, and I'm looking at their rolling 12 revenue to get a projected estimate of where they're going to be. I don't price based on projections, but it gives me an idea of, do I need to check back in on this person at the end of the year? So that's one thing. Again, I could price based on projections. I don't think it's fair, because I think we all know you could have a really great first quarter, really great second quarter, third quarter drops off the rocks. I'm not going to price based off projections. And then I run the second July through December, and then do annual price increases usually in January. Now, what I'm changing this year is that I've been running reports as early, I was doing my mid-year, but as early as October. And I'm doing a phased price increase this year, where I do have a few people where they're going to, we're basically, we know that they've already exceeded their annual revenue by October. Like, they've already jumped up a tier. They already need a price increase. And so we know that unless they're like my other client, they're not going to do $1 million in the next, 30 days, just based off their historical data, that they're going to need this price increase. We know that they're going to need that price increase because they've already reached that dollar amount. And so what we're doing is, I actually already sent them out November 1st, that they are getting a price increase as of January 1st this year. Now, anybody that has taken my course, you'll know that it is a little different from what I teach in the course. That's where I will be implementing some updates this year to the course. So you guys have some, different options depending on what works for you. But the core is the same. Twice a year, you need to be checking in on your prices and making sure that everything is fair for you, in line, and also, for your clients as well. I will just kind of back up a little bit. I do not teach you how to price. That's the one thing. I will teach you how to set yourself up for success, manage expectations with your client, how to notify clients that you're going to increase your prices, and respond to maybe any potential objections that they have. But I will not actually set the price for you. I cannot claim to be an expert in that. If you saw my spreadsheets, you would agree.
Awesome. So the semi-annual check-in, do you treat new clients the same as existing clients, or do you handle those in a different way?
Now, I do include them in my check-in, because I think we've all brought on a client where we thought the scope was going to be one thing and then it was another. But a lot of times still perfectly in line with them at that point and they don't need a price increase. I've very rarely had where we've had to change that up. Recently, I believe we had two, but they were startups. When they signed on, they hadn't even started their company yet. And so we make sure in our sales process with the clause that we have, but also in the conversation that we have, you're a startup, this is your startup pricing. We're going to be checking in as we go, and there will be increases based on, what we have set up. So it's never a shock for them. And I think that's the big thing with the clause that I have for our engagement letter, but also the conversation that we even have in the beginning in the sales process is that this is what you can expect in the future. And then it's not coming out of left field and they don't feel like attacked or they don't feel like we don't value their service. They know ahead of time, this is how we do things, just like I'm sure they have a process for that in their business as well.
And so you do more than just the bookkeeping. You do the bookkeeping, you do advisory, and then you do tax, and you do this automation, which are kind of like different beasts a little bit. Do you do those slot just as seamlessly into your price increase framework, or do you have to think about those differently?
Great question. So we personally do think about those separately. And so in my price increase letter, the mini course, it comes with an engagement letter clause that you can input into your current engagement letter. It doesn't have a full engagement letter because nobody's lawyer would let them sell that. But it does have a clause that you can insert and you can modify it as needed. It comes with notification email. So like 2 different email templates, depending on if it's scope of work increase or if it's a general increase, to let them know, hey, blah, 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 we're going to increase you, please see attached. And that attached is the price increase letter, the PDF. So the actual price increase letter for my company, I do actually have like a little kind of clause in there that says your tax and your automation services are separate from the discussion that we're having about prices, because of the way that we price our tax and automation services. Those 2 departments are basically, I always joke that it's Tax Island. Tax Island is operating over there in tax world on their own. We do tax price increases, but it's a completely separate conversation. We don't include it in the annual price increases. Our annual price increases are based on the bookkeeping and the advisory that kind of come hand in hand. The tax work and the automation work are completely separate for us personally. And that's the beauty of this too, is that you can modify this. This is you could take this and just use it, and just go with it, but you can also very easily modify it to what you do in your business. And I highly recommend that, because if you don't, if you don't have your business set up exactly the same as me, it might not make sense for you.
And you talked about with the largest client, I remember going back earlier in the conversation, you mentioned, so you talked a lot about the notices that you send here, and you also talked about you sent them a notice and then you hopped on a phone with them. Is there a threshold where you have these done over email versus call? Do you think about especially if this is your first time, do you call everyone? How do you think about when someone should be, when a price increase should be a phone call versus an email? Versus if it is a phone call, how much to put into the email versus saying, let's hop on the phone. So yeah, when do they get the more personal touch? When do they just get the email?
That's a great question. So the reason why, and I kind of cover this in the course, the reason why I have it set up this way, I have it where I send everybody an email, period. And then in the email template, it says, if you want to schedule a call with me, if you want to talk about this face to face, here's my scheduling link, let's schedule and hop on a call. And the reason I do that is for a variety of reasons. I just feel like personally, I have very limited time, not just because of the business, but also I've got 3 kids. I've got a lot going on. And say, for instance, Keeper was going to implement a price increase and you were
We're
like,
not,
Melissa,
by the way, I need to call this out. We're
they're
not.
not, they're not, they're not.
Not the purpose of this webinar.
That's not the purpose. But say that you were, right? Because I work with you. You're a service that I provide. It's a hypothetical. And you were to schedule a meeting with me to just be like, Melissa, we're increasing Keeper for whatever reason. I'd be like, Ben, this could have been an email, dude. Like, I'm so busy, and so that's me personally. And so I feel like giving people the option. Now, I know that there are people that have more personal relationships when it comes to finance specifically. where a phone call or a Zoom meeting would be preferable. That's right. And I've had this asked by people that are in my course. They're like, I sent this to a client and they were offended. And that's where I recommend you know your clients better than anyone. So you're going to know if you have that one client that's actually, your aunt's best friend from elementary school that's going to be offended if you send an email and you don't make it a phone call. That's where you have to modify it to you. But where I give you that out is that every letter, it specifically states in that email, schedule a meeting with me and we'll talk about this. I also have a couple of other clauses in there that are basically say, like, if you disagree with this price, let's talk. Like, let's have that conversation. And I will say again, so last year I sent out 100 and I had 4 or 5 people schedule meetings with me. Now, if we take that again by my hourly rate, so which the audacity, I calculate my hourly rate at $500 an hour, by the way. So if we take that, if I were to just try to get all 100 of those people into, say, even just a 30-minute meeting, at how much is that? Let's do the math, right? So that's $25,000 of my time in meetings that most of those people probably didn't want, right? So you have to think about when to, especially as you scale, just like how the efficiency of it, right? That being said, if that 30 minutes is the difference between me losing that $14,000 a month client, that's where, again, you have to take into account the, just there's going to be some subjectivity to it.
And I think we have time. I have time for maybe one more question. Then I want to at least open it up to some of the questions that have been coming into the chat. So it sounds like you do the price increases. Is that always the plan? Do you think there's ever a time where it makes more sense for the engagement manager to do the price increases? Is there actually a reason why it might strategically not be a good idea to have the engagement manager be introduced to the pricing? How do you think about who does the price increase?
Great question. So I've been in sales management for 15 years now. And in every sales role that I've ever been in, it has always been a great sales tactic and kind of like a weight off even just my shoulders when I wasn't in management and I was a salesperson, to have that other person that you can go to when you have like a price. So you want a discount. You have, oh, I have to ask my manager. Let me go ask my manager, right? Like, or, somebody has a question about, something, you have that second person that you can go to, right? And so it's very intentional that my account managers typically don't deal with pricing because I want them to be the good guy. And I believe it was Ben Day, if anybody knows him, that has always referred to me as the big bad billing Melissa, in the sense that that's how I operate in my company, which is that when it has to do with those tough conversations, I'm the one that's going to have the tough conversation. I'm the bad cop to the good cop in a sense, because I want my clients to have that trusting relationship with their advisor that doesn't get sullied by money. Money is an uncomfortable conversation. I teach people how to make it less uncomfortable, but it's still somewhat uncomfortable, especially generationally, depending on what generation you come from. There's certain conversations that are just really hard for people to have. And I don't want to put that on my team. Now, is this going to be me forever? No, I have grand, glorious goals of replacing me, but in my, mind, that will still be a finance person that is separate from the person that they're having that relationship with. So that way they can be, the bad cop to the good cop, right? So to give just a brief example, I know we don't have a lot of time, but if I've in the past I have actually discounted price increases because the advisor came back to me and said, hey, I know you ran the reports, but maybe you didn't know XYZ about this other situation that I've been having with the client. So then I could go back and say, okay, actually go ahead and you let them know now that we're going to decrease it based on the fact that you went to work for them. Like you went and you kind of gave me a reason why we need to decrease this, blah, blah, blah. And then it kind of gives them, again, another win. Like they can advocate for their clients. So I could get into this, but I know we don't have a lot of time. But yeah, for me, I think it's really important that it stays separately. For a single company, obviously you can't do that. Although I have always joked in the past that you can actually have your own VA do it for you. And if you don't have a VA, you can just create another Gmail account, and you can have a VA named Trevor, and Trevor can send that price increase information over, and they don't have to know it's you ghosting as Trevor.
I love it.
So
Yeah, that's definitely something. I don't think we ever did it. We thought about it a lot when we were like really, really tiny. We'd be like,
yeah,
but we always said, let me talk to my X team, right? So it's like, let me talk to my
yeah,
product team, and the product team was like me and Kenny, and I would turn to Kenny and I
yeah,
would
exactly.
question. So you can always make yourself seem bigger by having teams, even if the team is just you.
100%.
Okay, so we
100%.
have a couple of questions here about your course. Seems like a lot of people are excited. If people want to take your course, if they want to get your engagement letter, they want to read more about all the amazing things you have to say about price increases, where can they do that?
Great question. So the easiest place would be to go to increase.melissahonan.com. You could also just go to melissahonan.com, and it's going to be in the solutions tab. So you just have to remember my name. And again, the audacity that I have a website that is my own name, but yes, increase.melissahonan.com. You'll see a lot of reviews from other people that have taken it. If this is something you're trying to implement right now, because it's price increase season, right? It's the end of the year. It's the time to do it. It is a mini course for a reason. I ramble a lot. And so I was very intentional to not ramble when I created this course, and to just give you the good stuff so that you could take it and you can implement it immediately. So don't be afraid to like, oh, I don't have a bunch of time to listen to her. You don't have to listen to me do anything. It's very quick. It's very easy to implement it. And you do also have a direct line to email me if you have any questions about it. Same Kate, rambling is my downfall. So you also have a direct way to contact me once you do sign up for the course too. So if you have any of these things where you're like, that doesn't quite work and I'm not sure how to do this, I have people email me all the time, give me their specific scenario, and I'd be happy to help you craft it and give you some ideas on how to make it work for you.
Awesome. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. And then also to the rest of the webinar here, thank you all so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it, Melissa. I think this was a masterclass, but it was only a mini masterclass. There's a
It's
masterclass
just a
behind the
mini one.
masterclass. So if you are dreading price increase season, or if you think you just want like, this is not an expensive course here, folks. It's a very reasonable course, and if it helps you send one more price increase your client's rate by like 10%, you're gonna get way more out of it than what you paid. So
Now, do you mind if I just plug one
please,
more,
yeah,
more
yeah,
thing?
correct me.
So say for instance, if you don't have any clients, so you don't have any clients to price increase, although you probably wouldn't be on the keeper webinar. But even if you do, like you have a couple of them, they're new clients and you don't have to price increase them. I do have a Facebook group. It's called Sales Tips for Bookkeepers, sales and marketing tips for bookkeepers. You can do it's like at Tips for Bookkeepers on Facebook. It is a public free group about all things sales, marketing, automation. You're welcome to go there and get lots of free advice, and lots of things on there that you could, don't have to buy a course to do.
Awesome. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone else, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your November. Good luck with the November closes coming up next week. And we will see you all here in a month.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate you.
Bye, everyone.